Welcome to IndiaNarrative.com. I'm happy to be joined by a Commodore retired Ishfaq Ilahi Choudhary. Uh, a Commodore Choudhary retired from the Bangladesh Air Force in 2003, and ever since he has evolved into a public intellectual in Bangladesh. He's also a regular in the Track 2 circuit. Welcome, Commodore Choudhary.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
In the next few minutes, we have the context in which this conversation is taking place, and that is the liberation of Bangladesh. And we thought you'd be one of the best person we can find to go over some of the details of how the liberation of Bangladesh took place. And what we're particularly interested is the Bangladeshi perspective to the liberation war and what was going on in the background before we had the military action taking place. If we can go back to the internal dynamics in Bangladesh just before 1971, I think that will be a good takeoff point.
Thank you very much. First of all, thanks for those introductions. I may not be the best person to talk on all these issues. There are very similar.
Being modest.
And we don't know honesty. But then I do take a lot of interest from my school days. And I've been very active in my school and college days in the student politics, especially left politics. And it's quite a surprise that I joined Air Force, Pakistan Air Force. And but the mental exercise is always there. As you said, background of that thing, the Bengalis, the Bengali Muslims, especially of Eastern Bengal, they were in the forefront of Pakistan movement. Okay, Pakistan Muslim League was formed in Dhaka in 1906. And Bengal was the only province at that time. Bengal was much bigger province. That West Bengal and East Bengal combined was the Bengal province, and it has been ruled almost continuously by Muslim League government. And Muslim League government, this was the only province in the whole of India where Muslim League was in the power. And in 1940, the Pakistan resolution was moved by then Prime Minister of Bengal, Shere Bangla A.K. Fazlul Haq. And even in 1946-47, Bengal was ruled by Muslim League. So being in the forefront, and when the partition finally happened, Bengalis in the then East Bengal had naturally had high hopes of a independent country, democratic country, and there was a difference between the rest of the Muslim League and Bengal Muslim League. Bengal Muslim League was, rooted in the peasantry. It was not like, unlike what is now in Pakistan, the politics is ruled by the upper Nawabs and Khan Sahabs and all that, the landlords. The Bengal, Shere Bangla and Sarwardi, their roots were absolutely with the peasantry. In 1947, the Muslim League could form the government only with the support of the Hindu scheduled caste. These people have forgotten this history, that the scheduled caste, who are not members of the Congress, they voted with Muslim League and for Pakistan. And the first, the law minister of Pakistan was a scheduled caste, Jogendranath Mandal, and he was made by being the law minister. He was, chief of the constitution making committee of Pakistan. But after the demise of Jinnah, the power went back to the absolutely the Nawabzadas. I mean, like Yahya Khan himself was a Nawabzadas, and they had the whole, especially the people of Bengal, felt that the Pakistan they dreamed of, where the democratic regime will be established and the people's rule, those are just forgotten. In 1954, this Awami League formed a joint front along with Shere Bangla and Maulana Bhashani, and they swept the, out of 100, and I think except 2 or 3 seats, they got all the seats of then East Bengal province, and they formed a government. But within 4 months from the center, the cabinet was dissolved, the East Bengal Assembly was dissolved, and the rule from center was established. That was the First shock was of course, the first shock was the language. Jinnah made his only visit to East Bengal in 1948, and in a public meeting, he declared that Urdu and only Urdu is the national language of Pakistan. Whereas only 3% people in Pakistan used to speak Urdu. Whereas at that time in the population, there was about 60% people who are Bengali speaking. So they said, okay, let Urdu be the language. We have no problem, but Bengali also should be there. That was the first, agitation. And second agitation was this thing, the dissolving of the popularly elected government. After that, the third was the martial law. 1958, without any sufficient reason, the power went to Ayub Khan, who was actually, now if we look back, these are all sort of American machination. The way they overthrew the elected government in Iran and in many other Middle Eastern countries. Here, Pakistan was being member of the various military, at least two military, pact, and people of Bengal were totally not consulted, not part of it, and in fact they were against this. There was huge agitation of the students, and slowly, and this during the Ayub Khan's martial law period, the total disillusionment with the idea of a Pakistani nation and idea of that only because we are Muslim we can make a nation. That thing was that never worked. Then between me and a gentleman from Peshawar or from Quetta, so we don't understand. We don't have the language. We don't have that. Yeah. Nothing is common. And very soon when
the issues which you have listed, one is cultural alienation. That second was the economic factor.
Economic deprivation.
And third is the linguistic factor as well, where Urdu and Bengali. In fact, you were a deep culture which had a very separate, there's an identity issue here as well, where you have a deep-rooted identity which is not rooted necessarily in Islam, but in the culture of Bengal, and which has its own distinguished market.
We had a very syncretic, religion where Islam was very much a lot of things were in common with, especially Vaishnavism, the Sri Chaitanya Dev. These were his mother was from Sylhet, where I am from, and the roots were all in Bengal. The songs, the hymns, and then came Tagore, and then came Nazrul. So actually, you see the type of the sort of Islam, exclusive Islam that they were trying to practice in Pakistan. Even, let me tell you the truth. The Pakistani Islam was also it was as much synthetic as it is in Bengal, but it is the politics which ultimately, has fragmented even the Pakistani society today, if you see. And thank God we got out in 1971. If we had not, then ours would have been the same as it is in Pakistan today. Highly fragmented on religious issues. There are Pakistan 95% people are all Muslim, but then again there is the Shia and the Sunni and Barelvi and the Wahhabi and all sorts of clash going on and shooting and killing each other. We are not part of that. Despite all the killings and bloodshed, still I am happy that we got out. Thank you very much. We came up in 71.
You indicated about the human rights issue here, which appears to have been the final trigger which led to this huge revolt and the liberation of Bangladesh. Could you elaborate on that? There seems to be a period of genocide which took place in Bangladesh.
Because, in 1970, election Awami League swept on the eastern side, okay? And except for 3 or 4 seats, all the seats that were in East Pakistan were won by Awami League. The power elites in Rawalpindi at that time never expected. They thought that, Awami League may get some seats, but the Muslim League and other religious party, Jamaat-e-Islami at that time, number 3 party, they will also have sufficient seats, and together with the Pakistan People's Party and other party, they will make a majority, and Awami League will not come to power. And even if Awami League wants to come to power, it will have to make a coalition with some other parties which are amenable to it. But this particular result, they could not read with all their intelligence and all. It was a huge failure, and the result of the election came as a big shock. So how to stop that? There was a lot of machinations. You know that Bhutto refused to come to Dhaka. The National Assembly was postponed, and on the 1st March, it was supposed to sit on 1st, 2nd. It did not. President Yahya postponed, and then the 7th March, and then the things moved very fast. On the plea of Yahya came and Bhutto came and on the plea of negotiation, they were actually bringing in troops from western part of the country, West Pakistan, East Pakistan, and very quickly they built up their forces, although not with the heavy weapons, but the forces. And on the 25th March night, in the evening, the Yahya Khan left Dhaka, and with the order that all these people will have to be suppressed, and he went to Pindi, and you know that he gave a radio television speech, and he declared Army League as a illegal, and Sheikh Mujib as a traitor. For treachery, he used this word, treachery.
So Pakistan made up its mind to use force and armed repression,
yes,
to crush the budding unrest and revolt in Bangladesh. Where do you place the role of Sheikh Mujibur Rahman in the mobilization of the counter forces to this repression?
Frankly speaking, he was a mass leader. He gave the general direction that you see we'll resist and will not succumb to their oppression and all. But as a nation, we are not ready for armed rebellion, and that's why the Pakistanis they were absolutely sure that we are going to march on, and they did. There were resistance by the police, there were resistance by the then paramilitary forces, but the most important thing which they did not calculate is that within the Pakistan army itself, the Air Force and to some extent Navy, there will be rebellion. They wanted to disarm, you see the various East Bengal regiment, which was like your Punjab regiment or Sikh regiment and all. Overwhelmingly, there are about 10 to 15% non-Bengalis. Rest of them are from Bengal, and at least half of those East Bengal regiments were posted in then East Pakistan, and they were in order to take them out of Dhaka, they dispersed them in various places close to the border, and that in fact helped them to revolt. And in Chittagong with Ziaur Rahman, in Kumilla with Khalid Musharraf, in Jadepur, north of Dhaka, with Shafiullah, and EPR with their commanding officers. They revolted and initial resistance, and then they retreated into India. And so initially the mass that was resistance was very disorganized, but the Pakistanis never thought that the people will down to the ordinary peasants and all will have so much of resistance, which ultimately became into a guerrilla war.
Excellent. Just hold that thought, because what you're saying is that there was an internal revolt within the Pakistani military. There was right. So that became a spearhead in a way, and then you had the mass upsurge which was coming, fusing into it, not in a very organized, but probably in a disorganized way in the beginning. How does Mukti Bahani come into this picture now, in this entire scenario, which played such a pivotal role in the liberation of Bangladesh?
Mukti Bahani, you see, for any guerrilla warfare to develop, you have to have a sanctuary, you have to have a training base, you have to have a constant supply of weapons, arms, training, and everything. So here, I would say that India played a huge role, positive role. If India had said that, okay, this is an internal affairs of Pakistan, and we close our border and we don't allow, then what would have happened? First of all, millions would have died of starvation and the killing would have continued, and there would not be the type of resistance that it grew up ultimately. But it is, I would say, a huge humanitarian as well as I would say statesmanship approach by Prime Minister Indira Gandhi and her government. and of course the people of India. And most importantly, I would say the credit to the people of West Bengal and Tripura. Pakistanis had very simple thing. They will kill the Awami leaders, student activists, left wing, and the Hindus. All Hindus are automatically despised, so they burned their, particularly Hindu areas and all were under subject. So that created the exodus, and nearly 10 million people. And remember, in 1971, India was not India today. It was much poorer. In fact, some areas of West Bengal, Assam, Tripura were much poorer than Bangladesh itself. But these millions of refugees streaming in, there is a lot of stories of people opening their houses, inviting strangers into their houses, guests and all. And then slowly, initially in the beginning, it started from 25th March, and at the first week of April, the leadership, Awami League leadership, two or three of them, including headed by Tajuddin Ahmed, who was declared acting prime minister, they were invited to Delhi by Indira Gandhi. And Indira Gandhi had a long session with them because they were in problem with what to do with all these people coming in with weapons and all and seeking our, not only our sanctuary, but also seeking our weapons and all, which is dangerous. And at that time, there was a huge, Naxalite movement going on all around the West Bengal border and also on the northeast. So, but Indira Gandhi listened to them. They said, yes, we are, we are serious on our issues. And then she advised that then you have to form a government and come to some sort of, concrete. And then I think it was on 19th April or 17th April, the first proclamation of independence was declared, and the government, interim government, was formed in a liberated part of Bangladesh, not in India, but close to the border. It is known as now Mujibnagar. It's in the district of Kushtia, just across 30 miles across Palasi, where this famous battle of 1757 happened. So there the government was formed.
Sorry to interrupt you, but this is very interesting. That India did not have its own plan to liberate Bangladesh, but it was driven from below. That is, at the urgings of the Bangladeshi, leaders of the time, that they were the ones who convinced India for support, and India became a rear base for the Mukti Bahani, and the first liberated zone was also created in a very classic revolutionary kind of a struggle, you can say, which has taken place in other parts of the world as well. So it was followed. So it's interesting to note that it's not a top-down kind of a India imposing its will on the Bangladeshis, but it's the other way around, which is a full circle.
India was caught as much in surprise, you see, as the rest of the world. India was not prepared at all. As I told you, that she wasn't Indira Gandhi with all her years, she wasn't sure that what these people are going to do. Because if there are also, the Bangladesh Communist Party, there were hardcore cadres. They were also crossing the border, and they also did form their own, Mukti Bahini forces. There were also Awami leaders who had. So arms were going on. So she had to take a very calculated move. But I'm saying that the Indira Gandhi's that treaty of friendship with Soviet Union and the continued Soviet support of political support and also the military support to India helped India to take those steps towards Bangladesh, because there is the Chinese. The Chinese were all out for Pakistan, and there was a danger that Chinese might create problem on the border, which ultimately they didn't. And then there was the whole Islamic world, minus those 3 or 4 countries which were pro-Soviet. Egypt, for example, Syria, and Iraq. These 3 countries, more or less, they supported our cause in the humanitarian cause. But you remember that the Gulf Arabs, they opened their door, and all sorts of financial aid and the military aid Pakistan got toward this period. And the Americans, of course, the very strained relationship between Indira Gandhi and Nixon, these are now very, very much in the open. And, towards the end of the year, they sent their fleet US 7th
The
Fleet.
Seventh Fleet was
Yeah, they could have stopped the outcome. By that time, more or less, the fate is decided. But they were trying to, check, sort of raise the stakes. But then the Soviets at once counter moved by sending their nuclear submarines into Bay of Bengal. So things, ultimately nothing came out. So that's it. But it was a short and sharp war, participated by both sides,
yeah,
Bangladesh and India.
excellent. It's a great story. But just my last question, into the future. Looking at it, the geographical positioning of Bangladesh and India's Act East policy, uh, shouldn't Bangladesh serve as a bridge to India's outreach, not only in South Asia but towards ASEAN? Given this geographic location, and coming to one other point which happened was that we had a problem with the Chinese in 2017 at Doklam, and the target seemed to be the Chicken's Neck, that is a Siliguri corridor, which connects the rest of India with the northeast. But India would therefore need transit through Bangladesh to overcome its vulnerability. Don't you think that should be one of the focal areas as we go forward in developing our relationship?
Okay. First of all, let me say that the possibilities of an armed conflict between India and China, especially on the east, I think I don't think it's very much there, because India is much more prepared. You see, always the arms thing, options are always when you are one side is very. Today, India is in a very strong position as far as Northeast is concerned. Because Chinese don't care about human rights; they care about business. The China has got a huge business interest in Myanmar, and uh, embedded interest in Myanmar's military, because because of the military they have all these contracts. So we are disappointed with that, but I wish we had better Chinese Indian response on Rohingya issues. But rest of the issues we are very fine, because we have a huge Indian investment in Bangladesh on the textile. There is a large number of textile factories. Actually, in the place where I live here, every morning, I mean, we meet on the walking and all. There are people who are owners. There are people who are employees on the various Indian investment here. We have set up an Indian EPZ near Khulna port. There is an Indian investment is coming, and those peculiarities of those investment will be the factories will be in Bangladesh, but they will export back to India. Products will be sending back to India, sort of linkage, and we welcome this. Then there is you talked about Siliguri. We are reviving one after the other the connectivity. The connectivities which are lost, first of all in 47, and then the second was in 1965, when Pakistan government cut all these railway communications and road communication. One by one, those are opening up. We have the old Khulna Express now leaving from Calcutta Shialda station to Dhaka. That sort of thing. And very soon we are going to have a direct link from Calcutta to Siliguri by train railway link, which used to be there. So these are the positive things. And if the relationship is good, this sort of what would be Bangladesh positions in case of any hostilities there, those will be become secondary. But I think at this moment, both the governments should concentrate on further improving the relationship. One thing, for example, the youth exchange. Our students, they go on to the various Indian universities, but those are not the top brand universities. What we want to, I always have been saying, that Indian IITs, Indian top they should have some scholarships for Bengali people who will come, and they will be the opinion makers of tomorrow. If you want to invest in Bangladesh, you invest in those areas: education, social contact, culture. There are more cultural activities and all, and they will welcome. I think there is on 17th there is a dialogue between our Prime Minister and
Yes.
I hope very concrete will happen there. That will be very positive, and I'm hopeful that, because India is something, you see, is neither India, Bangladesh, India can over sort of side can forget Bangladesh, nor can we. And another thing I'll say, quite often we see that it is India-Pakistan war of 1971. It is not India-Pakistan war. There would have been no war within Pakistan in 1971 if there was no Bangladesh. So it is Bangladesh war, of which the Western wing was also a part. So it should be the Bangladesh Liberation War of 1971, and then the right emphasis. It's not India-Pakistan War of 71. Yes, 65 was India-Pakistan War, or but I mean, this is a very sentimental issue for Bangladeshis, where they said that in the Indian whole 5 volumes of history I wrote, it is India-Pakistan War. It's not India, but there would be no war in 71. Why should there be? So I'm very hopeful of the future of our relationship, and in institutes, journalists like you, you are welcome to visit Bangladesh and see, and let's see that we have golden days ahead.
Absolutely. On that note, thank you so much, Commodore Choudhary. It's a real pleasure talking to you, and hope we can have another conversation in the future.
Thanks.
Thank you very much.